Hi everyone, my name is Nilu Tabrizi. I'm a video journalist with the New York Times, and I'm here in Chautauqua County, New York. It's about 7 hours northwest of New York City, and we are at a town hall for Representative Tom Reed of the 23rd District, and as you can see, it's pretty packed in here. There's lots of people filling the room, there's media in here, there are lots of issues important. A lot of issues important to people in this room, so we're going to chat with two residents of Jamestown here in Chautauqua County and hear what's important to them. So can you start by telling me your first and last name?
My name is Carol Jones.
And how do you spell that?
Jones, Carol, Carol.
Alrighty, and you, sir?
I am Mark Jones, Markjones.
Wonderful. And so can you tell me about this sign that you're holding?
So this sign has a picture of our daughter, Lauren. She is 30 years old. She has cystic fibrosis. It's an inherited disease. She didn't do anything to get it except be born. She's struggled with this her entire life. It's an incredibly expensive disease, requires a lot of medication. She's currently employed, working. She has private insurance through her current employer, which she was able to get because of provisions of the Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Before Obamacare, they had the pre-existing condition clauses, which meant that if you had an existing condition, they wouldn't insure you. She was able to get this job and get the insurance because of those provisions. So we know that Obamacare is going to get repealed. It's going to happen. What we're trying to make sure is that representatives know that replacement, or even as if they want to call it repair, whatever they want to call it, there are provisions they need to include to help people who need the help. And the pre-existing condition exclusions are one thing that must not be in in the new health care provisions. The lifetime cap. It used to be that you cap out at $1 million. I worked at a job for 30 years to keep insurance for my daughter. Fortunately, my company changed insurance companies, so we never hit that lifetime cap. But my daughter is now very close to needing a lung transplant. That procedure is close to $1 million. So if they get rid of the lifetime caps, she'll use that up in one operation and won't have any money left over to do the aftercare, to do the treatments for anti-rejection drugs and all of that. So it's incredibly important to keep these provisions, as we put here on the sign, in, so that people like my daughter who have health conditions that need attention, and she's a working person, she's contributing to society, but if these provisions aren't kept in and she gets sicker, she won't even be able to quit. She'll just have to work up until the day she dies. So that's what we're fighting for.
And we were chatting earlier about what it was like for your daughter in college, and that she had to go to college while she was receiving treatment for cystic fibrosis so that she could continue to be a full-time student and be covered. Can you chat with me about that?
That is true. A lot of people don't realize prior to the ACA, if you were on your parents' policy and you were above 18, you had to be a full-time student. In order to be a full-time student, you actually have to physically be in the classroom. She would be sick for 3 weeks at a time and have to be hospitalized. I literally moved her around and took her from the hospital to her class so she could still be in class, and slipped her back into the hospital prior to this so that she could maintain both her eligibility as a full-time student and her health care. I also know students who were on IVs, took their IV pull or their chemo on the IV pull to class so that they could maintain their health insurance and not lose it too. The ACA has allowed people to move from state to state. It's allowed people to have a job. It's allowed people to be full-time students. But most importantly, it's allowed people to be sick and still be covered. And that is a very important qualification of the ACA. It's a very important provision that we have now.
So I want to share with you some audience comments that we're getting and some questions for you. And for anyone watching, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments and we'll chat about them. So this is something we talked about before. Georgette Bennett says, I'm guessing they'll put her in the high-risk pool, and yes, pre-existing will be covered, but will you be able to afford it? Let's try. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Maybe some people don't know much about the high-risk pool.
Well, the high-risk pools, the problem with the high-risk pools, and they had them before this, and my problem with them is they do have caps on them. And the most important thing is there's going to be procedures that will not be covered. So, for example, her double lung transplant that she's going to be needing, that's going to be over $850,000 for one procedure, that will not be covered under a high-risk pool. That will not be something that'll even exist. Whatever amount they are going to charge, I hope we can afford to pay it for her, because we don't want her to be without insurance. I don't want anyone to be without insurance. We've COBRA'd her before. A lot of people don't know what that is. When you lose a job, or when she was a teacher before her present job, and she became too ill to do that job anymore. She went back to school, retrained. While she was retraining, we COBRA'd her on our insurance. So there were, those are very expensive things to afford, but you had to have the continuity of insurance before too. That's another thing that we didn't talk about. And with the ACA, you didn't have to have that continuity of insurance. That's what the House and the Senate are now talking about, that you have to have continued insurance. So you better like your job, because you're never going to be able to quit if you have a health problem. You're going to have to be in it the rest of your life, or your life will end. It's that serious.
When we talk about the Affordable Care Act, and when we talk about, pre-existing conditions, what's one thing with your daughter that maybe many people don't understand or don't have insight to about how ACA is supporting people?
Well, I don't think people have any idea that it affects all the private insurance that people have in their employers. I've understood there's 150 million people in the U.S. that have private health insurance, and I hear a lot of people say, well, I'm not on Obamacare, so it's not a problem. But yes, it is, because pre-existing conditions will affect you. You're one diagnosis away from having a pre-existing condition. So that, and most people don't realize a pre-existing condition can be something as minor as asthma or allergies or high blood pressure. These are all pre-existing conditions that could preclude you from having insurance.
We just learned that Tom Reed had a pulmonary embolism. He has a pre-existing condition.
That's right. That would
so I think it would behoove him to consider, hey, this can happen to anybody. It's not people who are not taking care of themselves or who are somehow undeserving of medical care. It can happen to anybody. We'll all need medical care in our lifetime at some point or another.
And another thing I don't think people realize is how much certain diseases cost. For example, if you are unlucky and get diagnosed with 4th stage cancer of any type, it's going to be about $1 million per year to keep you alive. You're going to get that lifetime cap in about a year's time. And I hope you want to live longer than a year. I know I want you to live longer than a year. I want you to live many years. So this is a very important thing. So high-risk pools aren't going to give, they're really going to be no coverage. It's about as equal to no coverage. It's better than nothing, but not much better.
Yeah, we have some questions here about insurance being tied to a job and how that can be a little nerve-wracking or a little bit tense for people.
Yes. My husband stayed in a job for 30 years just so our daughter could stay on his health insurance, and you better love your job. And most young people, especially, are very mobile. People need to move. My husband's job got moved to Pennsylvania. We're living just over the Pennsylvania line in New York, and that's, you move everywhere, and you've got to have insurance, and it has to be able to go with you. I prefer it not to be tied to your insurance, your employment, but if it is, at least with the ACA, we are backed up with special provisions that we are all enjoying, whether we're on the ACA or not, we're all enjoying the special provisions right now.
So I'm just going to reintroduce what we're talking about here for maybe people that have just joined us. So we are in Jamestown, New York. We're in Chautauqua County. Representative Tom Reed is here holding a town hall. And we're chatting to a couple residents here whose daughter has been able to get support from ACA. Their daughter has cystic fibrosis, and this has been able to provide her some coverage as well. Let me see if we have any audience questions here. Let's see. And so maybe we were talking about this a little bit before, that the ACA isn't perfect by any means.
No.
Can you talk about maybe some of the costs associated with it? Do you find it an expensive healthcare program? What are some of the things that you would hope to see change?
Okay, with the ACA, because I did help my nephew get his, his cost was about $100 a month, and I personally found, and he is 26, and I found that to be a very affordable amount. I think what most people consider unaffordable is because they really don't know how much healthcare really costs. What would be considered unaffordable for some people after we've been dealing with thousands of dollars of medical bills, we consider everything that we've looked at with the ACA to be extremely affordable. Relative to what you're getting. If people really knew the benefits they're getting, if you consider you're getting $1 million worth of health care with what you're paying monthly for your ACA, you're getting a really good deal. You're not getting $1 million of care on your car insurance, you know?
And to me, I think one of the main problems with ACA is they were not aggressive enough in the tax end of it. For the insurance companies to buy into ACA, they needed to get a huge pool of healthy people coming in. And the way that ACA attempted to do that was by charging people tax penalties for not buying insurance. The tax penalties were very low, way less expensive than the insurance itself for the first couple of years. Now we're just getting into the higher penalties now, and people will be, if Hillary Clinton had gotten in and things had continued the way they were, more people would have been opting in because it would have been expensive for them not to. So I think the main fix that could have been done to ACS early on would have been to impose higher tax hurdles, which would encourage more people to buy into the programs rather than to opt out and just pay a small tax penalty.
Let me just show the room really quickly and we can keep chatting. I just want to show people how many people have gathered here. So here it is. Yeah, since we sat down, as you can see, there's lots of people here. We're in the Senior Citizen Center in Jamestown, New York. It's about 7 hours northwest of New York City in the very western part of the state. We're pretty close to the Canadian-U.S. border and close to the Pennsylvania border. And this is just a view for you of people who have filled the room to attend Representative Tom Reed's town hall. And there's lots of signs here. So there's one in the back, show us Trump's taxes. I've been seeing some signs supporting immigrants and refugees. So let us know if you have any questions. I might walk around and chat with some people after as well. So let me just sit back down. And so, you know, I had heard that lots of people were coming out. I don't know if I expected this many people. Are you two particularly politically active? Have you been in, campaigned before, or anything?
I have campaigned for people in Arizona before. I have been on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. So I have campaigned for the individual, and I don't necessarily stick to parties. So.
And for you?
And I've been a little less politically active than my wife, but what has transpired leading up to this election, we were both campaigning, and with where we are today, I just couldn't sit on the sidelines. I had to get involved and get out and try to make a difference.
So let's just maybe give people a little bit of a sense of your county, of this district. So of the 11 districts in this, 11 counties in this district, there's only one that didn't vote for Senator or for Representative Reed, and that was the area where we have Ithaca. So can you maybe give us a sense of just kind of like the breakdown here? This is a pretty red part of the state.
It's very red. It's very red. It was Trump Pence. The signs were everywhere. I'd say this is a very red end of the state. Yeah.
It's rural. It's a lot of farming communities. It's a lot of kind of typical Trump areas. I think we're the very northern end of the Appalachians, so we're kind of in that mode. But there's still, I think it's 70 Republican, 30 Democrat kind of a split. And we actually knew a guy down in Warren County who was a Democrat who actually won his election despite the odds. So.
And we have a Democratic mayor here in Jamestown.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
So, it can go either way. And really the issues we're concerned about right now shouldn't be party bound. It should be people bound. So.
And I think people here are very much about the person, the candidate, and not so much about the party here. I really find that to be true here.
We have a comment here that I wanted to share with you two both. Sue Barron says, I worry about these proposed high-risk pools. Won't putting all people at high risk in the same pool be expensive? Is this something that you guys think about?
I think it will be very expensive, and just assume everyone is one diagnosis away from being in that high-risk pool. So eventually in America, it'll probably be about 80% of us will end up in that high-risk pool, and the insurance companies will be running themselves ragged to get that small 20% that hasn't been diagnosed with any great illness. And with the Human Genome Project and DNA and all of those things, who knows what insurance companies are going to require in order to sign you up.
One of the insurance companies, which one was it, already said if you have in utero testing and your fetus has cystic fibrosis, we won't cover it.
That's right.
Okay, great. Well, I want to say thank you so much for both of you for chatting with me.
Thank you for this opportunity. I hope it makes a difference.
Great. Is there anything else that you guys want to add? Anything we missed?
Please think very long and hard about repealing the ACA, and if you must do it, just repair it. It's very important. I've heard as many as 44,000 people will die as a result of this dramatic change, and I don't want to see that happen. I don't want anybody else to be living the nightmare we're living now.
Okay, I'll leave you with one last comment before we go from our audience. Elizabeth Kaiser-Venti says, love this couple. They are so well informed. So we all really appreciate you chatting with us. Thank you very much.